In a big bowl, add 450 grams of white flour. I did swap out 50 grams of it for rye as it gives it a nicer texture and taste. Add a big pinch of salt, don't be afraid. You will need 7 grams of dry yeast for this amount of flour. Next, we will need 370 milliliters of ice cold water because we need to slow down the yeast production and development because it will be staying overnight in the fridge. To combine the wet ingredients, first we need to make a well in the flour. Then I added 43 grams of olive oil and the chilled water I showed you before. Then I suggest you start from the middle and slowly add more flour to the mixture. And of course just add a bit of water, mix it through, and then add more if needed. Now you see my dough was quite soft and too watery, so I had to add more flour. And then you incorporate everything and place it down on your floured surface. Now it's time to start kneading the dough. Just start filling it in first, and then it might take a few minutes for you to activate the gluten. Here you will notice it's not quite right yet, and I actually kneaded it for about 2 or 3 more minutes. So just add a bit of olive oil in the same bowl, just clean. And yes, it's great if you use it on your hands because the dough will then not stick at all. And just transfer it through and cover it with a cling foil. Just make sure everything is sealed properly and store it in the fridge overnight. For the pizza sauce, heat up some olive oil in your larger pot and add 1 garlic clove. For 2 pizzas, I use 1 can of chopped tomatoes. And yes, I will rinse out the remaining tomatoes from the can with a bit of water. For seasoning the sauce, I use some salt, oregano, and the other Italian herbs. Once it's nice and thick like this, it's time to turn it off and let it cool completely. Turn on your oven and heat it up to 230 degrees Celsius. This is our beautiful overnight dough. Now you can see how the foil collapses down, and this is because of the gases released from the yeast. And also this is a good indicator that your dough has rised properly. Once you flour your surface, it is time to take out the dough. Just flip over the bowl and the dough will come out with no problem. Split your dough in half and then put 1/2 back in the fridge and cover it, please. And we will use the other half to make the pizza now. To make a beautiful dough ball, turn it around and start tucking in all the edges of the dough. Make sure they are actually stuck together, and using this technique will prevent the dough from actually opening up when you start rolling it out. And turning it over and tucking in those ends will help it actually stick. So again, this will give it a nice beautiful shape and it will hold together. Now it's time to roll out our pizza dough. First, of course, flour your surface and don't be shy to put some flour on top of your ball. So this will prevent the rolling pin from sticking. You can see I'm actually a bit harsher here in the beginning, and the dough is still stiff. The gluten isn't developed yet, and this is why you need to stretch it out quite a bit. If you have holes in your dough, just press it down and it will stick just perfect. To your clean and dry baking sheet, just add some wheat grits. This will just prevent the pizza from sticking, and no, it will not add any additional flavors. If you like other methods, feel free to use them. This is just my personal preference. For the toppings, I have some cheese, ham, mushrooms, olives, and cut up pepperoni peppers. Now I just add the tomatoes first, and then you add the cheese. You do not want to add the cheese on top. I actually argued with someone in school. This will cause the ingredients to be cooked instead of baked, because it will trap the moisture in instead of it being nice and crisp. So yes, this is my way of doing it. Just adding some peppers on top and of course some olives. I also added some oregano on top just for some extra flavor. I put it in the middle rack and first bake it for around 13 minutes, then flip it around and bake for another 10 to 15 minutes. It does purely depend on your oven, so you might have to try a few times before actually knowing how to make the perfect pizza. That was a nice crunch. And this, my peeps, is how I love my pizza. And of course, I absolutely love to smother some sour cream on top and eat it that way.